Hey, welcome back. As always, if you like the content of this channel, please like and subscribe and hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss anything. But I'm going to bring you something a little bit different right after this. All right. Today we're going to talk about my personal bourbon truth. I mean, a lot of people say, hey, how'd you get into bourbon? What got you into it? Well, to be honest with you, I grew up in a rural southeast area of the United States, southeast Arkansas. And, you know, we went hunting and fishing and would deer camp and things like that. And I cut my teeth actually on Jim Beam bourbon. And back then, you know, when I was hanging out with my friends, it would be Beam and Coke, and I got to where I didn't really like the Coke. I wanted Sprite or something lighter, 7-Up or something like that. And then I got to where I didn't want anything in it but ice. And then when I would hang around the campfires, and eventually we would just pass the bottles around, and I had an affinity for just drinking it straight. I didn't really want anything with it. So basically what I was getting out of the Jim Beam is those wood sugars out of the barrel. It's vanilla, a little bit of a fruity flavor like a ripe apple or something like that. And that's about all you're gonna get. So what I have poured in front of me here are 3 bourbons. One is a really good standard old standby bourbon, which is Wild Turkey 101. Now, another thing I've figured out is I don't really care for the 80 proof bourbons. Now, there's a lot of nuances that go into this. There's some 86s, 88s, things like that that are okay. My sweet spot, what I've found, is between 95 and about 118 proof. That's about where I like to live. Now, I'm not saying I won't drink anything over 120 something proof or even 130 proof, but where I tend to live in the zone, for me personally, is that between 95, and I like it more up around 98-ish, things like that. And there's nothing wrong with bottled and bonds. You know, they're 4 years old, at least, if not more. So age in the barrel makes a difference, but also climate makes a big difference of where they're being aged. All of these things go together. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna walk through, this is Wild Turkey 101, and I'm gonna take a little sip of this here, because basically you're getting some earthy tones in there, but when we talk about notes, we're talking about subtle little things, and we're looking and chasing these subtle little notes that we get beyond things. But most of the base bourbons have the major notes that they get come from the barrel, from the char, so those wood sugars. So let me take a little sip of this here. And what we're getting out of Wild Turkey 101, really good bourbon, but once you go to these other ones and come back, it loses its luster, okay? It's going to lose some of its pop because it's going to be overshadowed by these other notes. Now, what I'm getting out of here, though, is a lot of the caramel and vanilla and things like that, and some fruit notes. But Wild Turkey 101, and some people call it that Wild Turkey funk, has a little earthiness to it as well. Some grassy notes, things like that. But all in all, a good sipper. Now, this is 101 proof. And any bourbon you have is a good sipper for the night. Just gonna put it that way. Now, here's Rabbit Hole. Now, this is a finished bourbon. So this is straight bourbon whiskey finished in PX sherry casks. Now, this is gonna have some of the sherry notes coming out of that barrel on there. Now, it had to be, in order to be called straight bourbon, it had to live in a new American oak barrel with a particular char or whatever on it for a number of years, which minimum is 2, if not 4. If they're going to call it a straight bourbon and they age it for less than 4 years, they're supposed to disclose the age, but it has to be over 2 years. So we know this is an aged bourbon, but then they put it in the PX sherry cask. So we are going to get those base bourbon notes in here, and it's going to be impacted by the mash bill as well. So rye you know, a higher rye bourbon or a wheater, or even you can do 100% corn, but they always put usually a teeny bit of malted barley in there because they need it for the distillation. But let me try this one right quick. Oh yeah. Now again, I'm getting those base bourbon notes, but I'm also getting a little bit of that sherry-ness to it, and this one is really good. It's pretty subtle compared to some of the other ones when I've had Oloroso finished casks and things like that. That's a different type of sherry. But let me try this one more time. Really, really good. Really good. Now, what I'm going to say is this one is around $36, $40, somewhere along in there. It's not an expensive bourbon at all. This one's around $85. Now, prices vary geographically, but I'm just throwing that out there. This one's over $100. Now, this is the Calumet Farm 15-year. Now, this is a single rack black Kentucky straight bourbon. They give the rack number, the barrel size. This was 19 barrels in this batch. It's 105 proof. Right there's my sweet spot. And this is not finished. This is just the bourbon coming from the barrel. And it gives you some really good notes, I can tell you that. Let me taste it. Man, I'm getting more on the finish. Now, this one has a pretty good finish. This one's kind of shallow. When we talk about finish, I'm not going to go into all of the way that we taste these things, and I'm not chewing on them. I'm not doing any of that here. I'm just straight sipping on these things. But the finish is after the swallow. What are you getting in the way back? You know, in the back of your throat. Are you getting pepper kick? Are you getting a spice kick? Are you getting leather, tobacco? Again, very, very subtle notes. This one's not going to take you on that roller coaster ride. This is just a really good regular old bourbon. This one is a really good finished bourbon. And this one is a really good aged bourbon, in my opinion. Now, all of this is personal opinion. You pick the bourbons that you like, but I'm not going to rank these things because to me, this one's a top, middle, and lower end. But we're splitting hairs here. I guarantee you I could buy a couple of bottles of this and have fun with friends all night long. And, you know, or we could go all out and say, ooh, la-ti-da, we're spending a ton of money tonight to have fun. And I could have just as much fun with that. But guys, with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I hope this was informational. I hope this clued you in just a little bit on some of the things that we're talking about. But with that, as always, please like and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications, and I promise I'll keep bringing you these videos.